Tracey, so nice to see you again. Pearl, thanks so much for the introduction. Really excited to talk with Tracey today. Just some incredible things that are happening at Papa Murphy's, and just some exciting things to learn about. Before we kick off, Tracey, I'll let you do a quick introduction. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do and a little bit about Papa Murphy's. I'll do a quick intro, and then we'll get right into it.
Perfect. So happy to be here. So name's Tracey Ayres, and I work at Papa Murphy's, and I run the brand side and the innovation side. And a little bit about Papa Murphy's for those that may not know. Papa Murphy's is a take and bake pizza company that is located in Vancouver, Washington. Our headquarters is in Vancouver, Washington. And the brand's been around for about 40 years. And it was actually born from two local take and bake companies that were in the Pac Northwest at the time, and merged and created Papa Murphy's for about 40 years ago. So it's a unique offering where the pizza and other products, we do have things beyond pizza, are made freshly in the store every day, and then they are taken home to cook. So we are a franchise organization. We have just under 1,300 locations located across the US and Canada. We're in 37 states in the US. And so, with our brand originating in the Pac Northwest, we have high brand awareness and strong brand equity in the West. But as the brand has moved and evolved and expanded, you have lower awareness maybe in the East, like a Florida, and not as strong a brand equity. So that's our challenge as marketers, is how we deal with those two different ends of the spectrum. But that's what we'll probably talk about today a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's it. Don't get too far ahead of ourselves. We don't want to share too much. And I'm Marty Berman. I'm Vice President of North American LATAM for AdMix. If you haven't heard of AdMix, the foundation of our company really is within gaming, where we have established ourselves with over 350 properties within mobile gaming, of providing what we call in-play ads, which are actually within the ad experience and not disruptive. But more importantly, we've really made a push since last Q4 into the metaverse, which I know is a very popular term this day. But we're really AdMix is really a gateway for brands to enter the metaverse and help navigate the multiple worlds and environments within a Web3 experience, and everything to identifying land, where to build, and then actually activating within the metaverse. We currently own over 100 parcels of lands within the metaverse, and are closing an additional $10 million fund to buy additional land. So that's a little bit about AdMix, but let's get into it with Tracey. That's why we're all here. Tracey, really enjoyed talking the other day, and you've got a long background within marketing. You've worked for big brands within CPG, retail, and QSR in the past. What was the biggest challenge you faced when you made that move to Papa Murphy's, which is a real franchise based, as you mentioned, and more regional in scope, but certainly have challenges in other markets?
Yeah, Marty, I would say really, I can think of really two big challenges that stood out when I walked into this role. And I'd say the biggest was walking into a brand with such a unique proposition. So when we play in many categories. So versus playing in a defined category with defined competitors, which is really what you'll find when you work in the CPG world, and you have all that great access to IRI data, and you can really hone in on who the players are. You ask yourself those questions: what's the health of the category? You can see who the winners are, who the fast followers. There's so much information available to you. And I would say even from a QSR retail standpoint, those more defined areas within that, there's more robust historical data that you have, and brands are out in the marketplace with, and you have a better understanding of how they're operating. So, but for Papa Murphy's, we do not play in one clear-cut category. So that was a definite challenge, as we have a very complex competitive set, because which made it even more important that we get to, what is our positioning? What do we stand for? Where do we want to lean in and focus? Because if you think about from a food perspective, right, it's all about the occasion. So for us, we spanned a lot of different occasions. And so when occasion, I mean, where are you at the time? When is it? Who are you with? All those things impact your food decision or what you're going to choose. And if you think about the occasion, you could say, well, we're actually better suited for the frozen pizza category, right? You have to cook it at home, and it's on your own time. But we are a retail-facing brand. Well, there's a whole category of people that like to go to the store, pick up that meal that was made that day, and then take it home to cook it on their own. And then of course, there's the convenience stores are getting into meals, and even Starbucks is offering meals, things like that. So just understanding how we play in such a vast competitive set was one big challenge that was different for me. And then I would say the next one is, as we've mentioned a couple. Big retail QSR brands, it is normal for us to have long annual operating plans and long range plans, and we have lots of marketing jargon, and we have a lot more control. But this was understanding how to still have all that, but create the excitement with franchisees. So basically, less meant a lot more in how we communicated. And how we ultimately delivered what we wanted to deliver, because if we could not create that excitement or have that why understanding between us and the franchisees, then our propositions or the brand, it doesn't get delivered to the end consumer like we want. So that lack of control and needing to bring another group on that is essentially our customer as well was a new experience and just a different challenge.
Well, it's always good to learn, right? And step into the, expand your horizons a little bit. So that's great to hear. And we'll get into that all a little bit later in terms of talking about how you've kind of overcome some of those challenges. And, I thought it was really interesting, and I guess fortuitous for Papa Murphy's, as we were talking the other day, is that not long after you started, which was just before the pandemic, Papa Murphy's had the good fortune to shoot some new messaging that played perfectly into spending more time at home. What was the biggest, obviously, besides being very serendipitous, what was the biggest takeaway from that process that you learned as you had just started, and then you were doing that, but then you probably had to pivot and be much more nimble as a team right after that?
Yeah, I mean, and you're right to say we did have some good fortune in some ways, right? The core of our brand was positioned for at-home occasion, but interestingly enough, that point of difference had not been something that the brand had really been leveraging from a historical standpoint. So the biggest takeaway, and I'll get a little more into it, was just make sure that you always have your brand building blocks defined, and that those are actually driving your investment decisions, because sometimes the obvious answers to those brand questions may not get you to the level that you want to be in. So just making sure that you're honing in on those and digging down. So for example, had we just stopped at Papa Murphy's is in the business of selling pizzas, and we operate in the pizza category, if we had just left it there, then we truly would have not tackled our unique proposition, right? And in the pizza category. And that honestly was where the brand had been operating before, was really focusing on QSR competition. It seemed like the natural thing to do for historically and talking about the deal. But we were missing like our core point of difference, our unique offering that we had for consumers. So the reason we were ready was because we actually did take the time to highlight what our core competency was, to understand what our point of difference was. And we went through those basics and understood what our brand stood for, understood that we had a big competitive set. Had we not really took the time to understand that, we might not have come up with the right type of messaging. So we would have missed that opportunity, I guess, to highlight our point of difference in an authentic way. Not that we probably wouldn't have done like every other brand and figured out how do we, remessage and talk about at home, because that's what a lot of other brands were doing. But I think the advantage we had was we already knew that about our brand, and we had developed the messaging, so we didn't have to really, scramble.
Scramble, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
that golden opportunity, would have probably passed us by. And so to your point, we did go to Los Angeles, like literally February, right? We all went locked down in March. So we were in February and shot all these commercials about the passion that our franchisees have and how they literally go in these stores every day and make the dough and cut the vegetables, and they provide you with a product that you can then take home and customize it yourself. You can heat it when you want it. It's hot right out of the oven, so you don't have to, wait for it to be delivered and order it and for it to show up, and really brought about that point of difference. And so and honestly, we even talked about it was a safe product. It was just really uncanny how that had prepared us for that. So, but I think the key takeaway is having those building blocks ready, because even if, right, your particular circumstance, it doesn't line up exactly like that one just happened to, I think having that clear understanding of what your brand stands for allows you, right, to make those pivots and tweaks in the right way when the unexpected does happen.
Yeah, I know that's a great point, and certainly the unexpected did happen more so than anybody could have anticipated. And as I talked to a lot of brand marketers, and at that time, I recall very specifically, it was crazy. I mean, it was just trying to navigate that, and everybody working remotely and making sure that everybody was participating in the right way and being more nimble. And also, I think one of the things that we talked about as well, or not, I know we did, and that was, during this time, you have also recently gone through a brand reposition, and not a full transformation, which I know we can talk about later, but can you walk everyone through that process from ideation to launch? Because that's a process, right? You're changing, you're repositioning the brand. What was that like from your perspective as you sort of really put forth the idea and then launched?
Yeah, and I guess the brand purist part of me loves to talk about positioning. I guess most brand marketers do, but right, it can get very involved and is quite a process, as you mentioned. So, and I think this flows nicely from the last question. Even though we had identified and defined like our point of difference, our competitive set, we knew who our target was. We really had not defined our brand voice. What was our personality? What was our tone? And what do we want, really to be known for? The commercial we shot in LA before the pandemic hit was, very almost personality agnostic. It was about vegetables and the fresh cutting and just kind of really the core of who we were. So we were missing that next step, which is what this was all about. And so we entered into that brand as we entered in. The bulk of the Papa Murphy's consumers were, quite frankly, empty nesters, right? They had raised their families on Papa Murphy's. We met their needs as they had kids in the household, and households with kids over-index for pizza, so that makes sense. But we had not really evolved as new parents came and evolved, and so these parents that knew us and loved us and were still loyal to us really had came to us less frequently now, because they had, didn't have the kids in the household, had a little bit less need. And so, understanding that we needed to focus on that core demographic of households that had kids became, and making sure that we were being relevant to the parent today, because the parent today is totally different than that empty nester parent was back then. So many different things and avenues in the digital world and everything has changed. And so for us, it was really understanding the current parents' need states and how we could meet those with our unique proposition. So, and then, after getting there, making sure that everything that we did, from messaging, from our product innovation to the way we even talked internally, was grew from that positioning. So we had that clearly defined problem to solve, which allowed us to focus on solving it. So that was really the start of it, quite frankly. And then we took a lot of insights about our own brand, a lot of macro insights. We had brand health reports, lots of information and data, and then really honed in and took a lot of time defining what were the emotional benefits of Papa Murphy's, what were the functional benefits of Papa Murphy's, what were the reasons to believe, and of course, what was that consumer tension we were trying to solve all together, and ultimately, and that's why the process is so important, because if we had stopped at just point of difference target competitive set, we never would have got to this great place of understanding that we were unconventional in the best of ways, and that we were proud of that. We were proud of that point of difference that we had. And what we gave consumers that canvas to create something perfect for their specific occasion. And this made meals a little bit more exciting. We could talk about that. We actually could even say we were more convenient, because that's something you could say, we're not as convenient as a QSR pizza that's delivered baked, but that allowed us to play up even convenience, because we were still more convenient than having to create an entire meal on your own. Really brought to light that the uncooked nature of our product gave versatility and consumer control over the end result, which is something that most of our competitors could not deliver upon in the same way that we could. Again, all the different competitive categories, we kind of realized that was what we owned, and we had been doing it for many years. We were experts in it. So we started to get excited. We had something, that really mattered to the millennial family, and how do we hone in on, as dietary needs change and as philosophies change, how did we, step out of our own comfort zone, quite frankly, and start showing up as a more exciting brand to these parents. And so ultimately that landed us, we rooted our identity really in these unconventional approach to meals. And then we were very clear, though, unconventional did not mean weird, or wacky or something like that, just unconventional in a really good way. And so we were able to morph all that and understand our personality was creative, our personality was authentic, and our personality was independent. It was, empathetic. And I love this one. We stick with, we were raw. And I love that, because it's like, yes, we have raw food, but then we also it's raw possibilities with our food. You can do all kinds of things with our food that you really can't do with maybe some of the pizzas that are already cooked, And so all of that really led us to a brand new logo, a brand new color palette, a positioning statement that allowed us to gut check, every single thing that we do, and just allowed us to pull out that point of difference and be able to highlight our advantage that we had as maybe a brand that may have less equity somewhere. We start highlighting these differences, and then all of a sudden, you're listening. I would say some of the fun stuff that came out of it, for instance, highlighting the versatile, you can grill our pizzas. So we have an entire summer grilling campaign now of, influencers and fun stuff of people showing how they grill our pizzas, either at a sports tailgate or, at a home. And then we've played off, we highlight our baking experience with football and how you can bring that all to life and kind of be the life of the party and bring something new. And then it resulted, in a new, commercial altogether. So I would love to show the kind of where the logo was before and where it is now, if that's appropriate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we should have that teed up somewhere. If you guys could, at Brand Innovators, launch that. Okay,
I think this is the logo. I'm going to show the logo.
Yeah, you can share the logo if you share your screen, I believe.
Okay, I think that's it.
There we go.
Okay. So the old logo is on top, and you can see it just kind of has, I don't know, maybe that more Italian pizza look to it. And then below is where we are today. It's literally months into just getting into the marketplace, but it's more exciting. It's obviously more modern. And as we understood our positioning, we obviously did not want to alienate any of our empty nesters, but knowing that their need may be more towards other things, that spurs our innovation pipeline too. So that we wanted to move a little bit away from that kind of full Italian pizza look, and set us up for things that we might want to explore later on. So, and then I can, I think we can show the latest commercial to kind of show how that whole thing came about. I think somebody else has that though.
I think they left a shirt on their end.
Yeah, I don't have, I forgot who was sharing it. Oh, here it is.
Hi, I'm Kylie, and I make fresh, delicious Papa Murphy's pizza.
Hi, I'm Zach, and I make the Papa Murphy's pizza.
Sure, that's take and bake. We built it with the freshest ingredients. You bake it fresh in your oven.
By you mean me, so technically, I make the pizza.
Super good pizza, Kylie.
Oh, Kylie, so good.
At Papa Murphy's, we make great pizza, so you can make the pizza great.
Oh yeah, I make the pizza great.
Papa Murphy's, change the way you pizza.
So I'm glad we played that, because I did forget to mention, as we built the positioning, the change the way you pizza really came out as a key way to highlight that we were different on purpose, that we weren't your typical, a big QSR or pizza company, that we have a different product, a different way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll talk. I want to talk about that, because yeah, you're in a very big space with some very big competitors, and really are more of a challenger brand. So, and I'll skip ahead a little bit and ask that question now, because I think it's a very natural segue. And that is, as a challenger brand with major players in that space that can clearly outspend you and just market you in so many different channels. How have you found that positioning to be working, and how do you find competing against those major pizza brands, being the challenger brand?
Yeah, and I think part of it goes back to how we see ourselves, right? So if you look at it, when you think about the vast categories that we do compete in, if you're going to look at it solely from a QSR pizza standpoint, then yes, we're definitely a challenger, in that particular view. But if you think about like just from where we are, it's take and bake, it's kind of like we are in a category all of our own. But
yeah, no, absolutely. But as a pizza, that's what I meant more so from the category. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of say, like, I think we that's the ever kind of challenge we have, right? Is bringing that out. But it's something we do talk about a lot. How do we compete against them? And really the key understanding is really all about our occasion is completely different. It goes back to what I said in the beginning. Food is really about the occasion. So we have a completely different occasion, and we can deliver on that occasion better than other people, and we can meet a need that's different. So if you are, of course we have a consumer defined and a profile. So if that's your part of your general makeup is, you like to bring different unique things to the table. You're very busy. You need some help bringing those things to the table. And you like fresh and you like unique, different options, or you even like to customize it. The thing that's awesome about our product, like you can take a pizza that we make and you can roll it up and cut it into pinwheels, and so that's just something that we offer. So it's just really honing in on the different occasions that allow us to compete there, because you're absolutely right. Our spend will never, be the same, and the brand equity and from a nationwide perspective is different. But from a one-to-one competition as to the need that we're meeting, we actually feed a different moment than maybe a QSR. Not that we can't at times do the same thing, but I think it's honing in on the right target, of course, meeting the need that we can deliver upon better than the other pizza guys. So we carve out that spot, right? And so our challenge is to grow awareness with our growth target and convert them to guests by meeting needs like in our own unique way. And so a couple of good examples, which might bring it to life. So we have what we call the frozen pizza exchange. So going back to, like, you can say we compete with frozen pizza too. We had a whole event where you brought a frozen pizza in, and we took your frozen pizza and gave you a free Papa Murphy's pizza. And to really highlight the difference that what you're getting between the two. And then maybe a really good example of from competing against QSRs, we can do some really interesting innovation. We just in 2021 had an LTO that we partnered with the Fritos brand on. It was the Fritos Outlaw Pizza. And so it was Fritos, it was brisket, it was something really interesting. It was delicious. I know it sounds, totally unique, but it was really delicious. And that was something that really could only be delivered because we were take and bake. And so that had been explored from what I understand with some non-take and bake brands, but it's just by the time it had kind of gone through the process and delivered or picked up, either way, the proposition did not deliver as well as it did when you had it home and you cooked it and the Fritos were crisp, and it really brought about that taste. So we've been able to also develop products or even partnerships that are unique to us. And in fact, right now we've got a partnership with Amazon Prime Video right now as they launched Hotel Transylvania. It launched at home. They wanted a pizza brand that could be all about the home experience. And so we've got that partnership going. And I think it's because we have started to define ourselves and really position ourselves as owning that space that's opened up a lot of these opportunities for us.
Fantastic. No, that's great. I appreciate you sharing all that. And, I think one of the things you've gone through so much within a short period of time, and throw the pandemic on top of it. You've gone through rebranding, logo rebranding, repositioning. What were a couple of takeaways that you can share with everyone as you sold through that rebranding to senior leadership? What was that process? What were some of the challenges and how did you overcome them? Because I think that's always the biggest challenge, right? Internally, is you've got to sell this concept and this idea that you've worked on and your team has worked on, and why you want to make these changes.
Yeah, a great question. If I were to think of three things, I would think part of working on a challenger brand is being prepared to challenge the way that a brand has actually been looking at things in the past. And so, and then I think the second part of that is delivering a compelling story or reason for people to listen to you. So I think what I mean by that is basically get comfortable being uncomfortable and being able to not be afraid to ask questions that might raise eyebrows or institute big changes. So I would say that that's part of it, is being prepared, to challenge things. And then secondly, I would say confidence, believing yourself, trust your training, trust your expertise and your knowledge. Don't, just because a company may not have thought of it in a certain way or used certain measurements in the past, doesn't mean that they can't be introduced now. And they may be a little bit foreign, but just being, I think the key is bringing the why behind it, not just, oh, this worked on these other 4 brands I worked, but why it makes sense, for this. Because I think you can also quickly be discounted if all you ever do is talk about the things you used to do. And so I think that's really important to be able to translate that experience. And then I would say finally, I'm a big proponent of this, is never underestimate the power of a really good storytelling presentation or ability just to walk somebody through. You may not always have the chance to give a presentation, but just to, almost like your career, have that elevator speech of the things you are trying to accomplish, and have it in a way that that is able to, that's kind of compelling and something people want to listen to.
No, I think that's great, because I think again, everybody faces that challenge, is always selling through an idea to senior leadership, and I think it's always interesting to hear how people approach it and so forth. What I know we've got about 10 minutes left or so. So if anybody wants to start thinking of some questions, I know we've got one question so far in the Q&A, but we'll get to those in a little bit. What channels have you found to be successful over the past 2 years as you've been going through this brand repositioning? Has it altered at all the channels you've been using, and also that in terms of the audience that you're going after?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think as we've gone through this transformation, I mean, just like a lot of other people, right? So we've shifted a lot of things to digital channels. But I think it was probably maybe even like a bigger shift for us because we had been kind of focused on, the core of our consumers, like as I was mentioning, were those empty nesters. And so as we morphed to making sure we were capturing that millennial family, that was in our sweet spot, really making a bigger change effort to shift towards some digital channels. Not only did it reach our target audience, but it allowed us to be more nimble and more efficient, right? And then we could target, right? So if we have high equity, high awareness in one place, that could be a slightly different target than whatever Florida, where it might be a lower awareness. And then it also allowed us to highlight different products too. One product may mean more to a different part of the country. So, we really learned how to leverage that to our ability. And again, not as big of a budget as, maybe some of the bigger QSRs. So that certainly helped. But overall, we've definitely seen, that those impact sales, impact our brand awareness. We get our biggest, paid social performs very well for us. We're obviously constantly looking for how do we fit in stuff like TikTok and Pinterest. So we're always looking at those things. But interestingly enough, I almost feel like we're on two different ends of the spectrum because digital is important for us. But we also cannot discount the impact of our local community involvement because we are very entrenched. Our brands are very entrenched in the communities. The franchisees, a lot of them know their customers by name. A lot of customers will call, I want Bill to make my pizza. I mean, it is a very like a personal thing. So it's almost like we're
Can't get much more personal than that.
Yeah, right. So that's interesting because that's important to us too, to stay involved in those communities and, whether it be the high school or the schools or, however to exit that would not make sense for our brand. But, and I mean, text plays a role in that kind of local feel too. We want you to know what we're doing and we can connect those texts a lot of times to what's happening, right there. But it doesn't mean that we abandon broadcast. Obviously, we're going and making commercials or print even, but it does shift our focus to some of these things that help us to get people at the right moment when they're making decisions. And I would say just finally add to that, it's like for us to understand the role of each of those channels. One may deliver one metric and one may deliver another, but still just as important for different reasons.
Yeah, no, and I think, you touched on some of the key points that any brands are considering when they're looking at these new channels and digital, the TikToks of the world, and you have to be authentic. You have to be, authentic to who your brand is and who that audience is, or else you will quickly become a meme in the digital world. If you're not connecting, you're doing it wrong. Consumers will let you know these days. And then I think the other big challenge with some of these channels is the social landscape in terms of values right now, and how do you navigate that as a brand to make sure that you're not overstepping with all these social challenges that are happening in our world today, but at the same time showing support. So I know it's a brave new world out there for a lot of brands, and it's always tricky to navigate.
For sure, definitely.
So I have a question. There's someone popped into the Q&A, and again, we're gonna head to Q&A here. So if there's some questions that you want, please feel free to let us know. So the question came up: given the competitive landscape and the unique product Papa Murphy's provides, are you doing anything around deep personalization in the marketing platform? Or in your marketing platform, not the marketing platform, sorry.
Yeah, interestingly enough, we have a big push for that right now, and it's been part of our digital transformation that we've been working on. So we are really, we have a whole work stream of we're launching more one-to-one personalization so that we can actually understand more about the activity of our consumers from a digital standpoint, and we can communicate with them in more authentic and real ways. So it's actually been a labor of love for the past several months, if not 12 months. And so that's actually just kicking off, getting all ready to tie in a big bow and get going. So we're really excited about that. So it's a great question, because it's been one of the keys that we have been kind of chomping at the bit for it to become real for us, and it is finally coming to life. So.
Fantastic. So we've got another question that just popped up, which is a real good question. And that is, how is Papa Murphy's thinking about customer loyalty versus acquisition? Are you focused on are you more focused on one than the other?
Yeah, that's a tricky spot for us too, because we have a deep need for acquisition right now. That's the future of our brand, and we are really want to put a big push behind acquisition of that key growth target. We still are not forgetting, once they get in, we do have a loyalty program, and that goes back to the previous question. How are we continuing to communicate with them and keep them in the fold? We don't want them to come just once, we want them in the fold. So we do have a loyalty program that is securing them and keeping them. But then, I feel like I'll also address, we have that whole group of empty nesters that we don't want to lose, even though our focus, may be a little bit more on bringing the millennial family into the fold. It's just because we had not focused on them. So we had, a ways to go on bringing some more of them in. So that was important. But, as far as maintaining our loyalty with our other guests, we have lots of ways that we communicate with them. And even as we've gone through this positioning, we've developed ways to, different products, and ways that we can communicate with them. So that's the exciting thing. As we head into the next 12 months, we'll have some exciting things coming out that show that we're addressing maybe even things beyond pizza.
Fantastic. Another quick question. I think we've got time for one more. And, Papa Murphy's being a franchise system, what were the constraints, if anything, that put on your rebranding? Was that a challenge as you kind of sold, because you have to sell it through internally first, but then you also have to sell it to your franchisees, right?
Yeah, it's definitely that added layer that we talked about earlier, as far as, they have a personal investment in this. This is their business, and they, they purchase the equipment, they purchase the signs and the things that bring the brand to life. And so it is asking them to believe in the why behind it and be able to succinctly deliver that. Create that excitement. I mean, there's certainly a craft to bringing them along. I think providing benefits to incentives to make those changes too is something that the brand works on to do, to show that we're not asking you to do everything. We're in it with you, and we want to bring this brand to life together. So that's another key part of getting them excited about why we're doing it. We're not doing it just to do it,
Right. No, absolutely. So I've got a question here. We've got, I think, another minute or so. What was the most surprising reaction to the new brand repositioning from both consumers and internally? Did you go through a process? Did you go through like, oh, that's a definite no, or did you test and learn with consumers, or were consumers involved? And then, internally, what kind of feedback?
Yeah, we did a little bit of consumer gut checking, and again, that was a really nice thing about our loyalty database, that we could, we are able to leverage that for some learnings on our own without kind of having to go through the big, rigmarole of a formal study. So there was we wanted to understand from even our current guests, like, what would this mean to them? What does this mean? So we definitely did some of that. There was honestly, there was great enthusiasm. I think people were just ready for the brand to be relevant and to look exciting and to come to life in a way. I think, especially if you were a franchisee that had been with the brand for a long time, you really believed in the brand and, knew all these possibilities about it, but we just had not, played it up and brought it to life. And I think this was received very well from, internally, and feedback we got externally is it just showed that we cared about the brand and we were bringing it to the best light possible with our consumers.